But now we're going to get straight into some hot topics, some of which I think got touched on there, and some of which we've already talked about. 3D, augmented reality, virtual try-on, basically the holy trinity of using digital assets to change the way we think about e-commerce. And to tell you about all of that from their first-hand perspective, I'm going to bring in Matthew Klimpke. He's CEO and co-founder of Viking with a Y. Thibault Marion de Proce, who is CPO and the other co-founder of Viking, still with a Y. And Franz Tschimben, who is CEO of Covision Media. I'm going to hand over to these folks. Just a quick reminder, if you've got any questions you want to ask, feel free to ask them in the YouTube comments or in Slack. And I might even have a couple for the Viking and Covision team when they're done as well. But for now, over to you guys.
All right. Thanks, Ben. Just welcome to this session between Viking and Covision, where we'll be talking about 3D, AR, and virtual try-on, and how collectively we are transforming fashion e-commerce. My name's Matthew. I'm one of the co-founders of Viking, and Viking is a computer vision company at the core, and we're specialized in scalable virtual try-on solutions for the fashion industry.
Hi everyone, I'm Thibault, one of the co-founders of the Viking too, and CPO. Nice to meet you.
Hi everyone, my name is Franz. I'm the founder and CEO of Covision Media. We make 3D scanning hardware and software. I've been collaborating with Viking a bunch, and very much looking forward to this session as well.
For those of you that aren't familiar at all with Viking, we are like an end-to-end AR platform for 3D experiences and virtual try-on, and we make this available to our customers both in store and online with our software packages. So here's a little demo of our software in action. So here you can see there's a 3D model. This app has our SDK integrated, so you can view the model in 3D, and you're also able to try the shoes on directly through the smartphone camera. And this initially started out as a concept that we created back in May 2018. We created, put together something that was our vision of what the future of footwear e-commerce would be. We tagged a bunch of different brands and manufacturers in the post, and most of them reached out to us and asked if they could start to test this. But we actually had to build up a data set in order to train our machine learning models. So we built this up from scratch. We now have over 150,000 images of shoes and feet from various different angles, different backgrounds, different lighting, so that the actual try-on technology is able to work in any potential scenario. So since launching in 2019, we have recorded more than 300 million VTO sessions. Some of our biggest customers have been in China, where we've seen enormous growth over the last few years. We've now deployed more than 20,000 3D models for VTO. And we've actually seen over the last year in particular that this has really started to scale up because of companies like Covision, who are able to produce these 3D assets, high quality 3D assets, very efficiently and quickly.
Yeah, and I think one of the first touch points between our companies was actually working together on the top left account, so working with Adidas and of course their studios as well globally. And as I said, we launched a bit later than the pioneers of Viking. We spent a lot of time perfecting the computer vision machine learning technology to get the scanning right, which we felt like was a bottleneck in the industry. And now that we cracked that, we are happy to see that there's actually lots of requests and market for it, as Viking has shown. And excited what the future holds in terms of 3D assets, right?
And I mean, of course, we've been working on this since 2019. We've been doing it, but very quietly. We've been integrating into lots of different apps and websites. But what's been very interesting for us is over the last few years, we've seen the big tech players like Snap and Amazon launching their own VTO solutions for footwear, because they know that there's the engagement, this provides real utility. And ultimately, this is the future of online shopping, where everything will be 3D, and AR will be a huge part of this as well. And this is, for us, of course, when we first started out, it was, okay, we had maybe 10, 20 different products that would be available in the 3D. But what's been very key to us is to get this away from being seen as something that's a marketing gimmick or something that's only available for a select small number of products. What we want to see is every single product page having a 3D model and having VTO available. And in order for us to be able to do this, we partner with companies like Covision that are able to produce 3D assets at scale. And the second part here of how to make this scalable is we've incorporated automation into the actual fitting process of 3D models for virtual try-on. So that means as soon as we have the models from any of our customers, they can very quickly process them and get them live on the site or inside their app. And this has been very, very key as well. Go on, Franz.
No, just one aspect, sorry, Matthew, to interrupt you briefly, but one aspect that I think is interesting as well, of course, in this presentation, we decided to focus lots on shoes, and that's kind of where it all started. I would say it's the obvious try-on, but it's not so obvious AR application, I would say, in the sense that many other product categories will become relevant and, let's say, hop on the train that the shoes have started, right? So I'm talking bags, accessories, clothing, of course, in the future. And we'll be very interested to see how AR and 3D in general is leveraged to create stunning content.
Absolutely. And the third piece here as well is that we're very excited about Apple's recent announcement of object capture. So up until now, we would say that AR and 3D, especially being done at scale, has been reserved pretty much exclusively for enterprise level clients. But what we believe the rest of the market will open up as it becomes easier and more affordable to create 3D content. So, I think the two like companies like Covision and then having Apple's technology available to the wider market, I think these are both very important things for the uptake of AR and 3D.
Yep. So we created cross-platform technology for virtual try-on. So our goal is that anyone, wherever they are able to experience the same virtual try-on technology despite the device. It can be integrated inside any website. If the user is on a desktop, a QR code will appear on the screen that he will need to scan in order to enter the VTO experience. VTO standing for virtual try-on. If he's on his mobile, he will directly launch the camera view in the virtual try-on mode from the mobile browser. We also developed native mobile app SDKs, which can be integrated inside any iOS and Android app. You can already experience it if you download the Adidas app, for example, and look for any type of product with an AR icon. And as we covered all these digital platforms, we thought, okay, what's the next step? So we decided to launch the first AR mirror powered by virtual try-on technology, which is an extension of the digital product we have, which can have exactly the same 3D models created by 3D scanning providers like Covision here, where the user can choose the digital outfit he wants to wear and can directly see the whole look digitally on the screen. So I know this used to be a shiny object 10 years ago, but the reality is here. We're deploying it in many known stores near you. As you can see on the screen, the user doesn't have to do anything. He can just go in front of the camera, in front of the screen, and he'll be wearing his favorite sneakers. Soon we'll be launching the same for apparel. The idea here is to bridge the physical and digital world, so you can have exactly the same experience as you have on your mobile experience or desktop experience, but inside your physical location. So of course it's great for an actual store, but it can also be used for promotion of a new sneaker, for example. The reason why we have customers today, and the reason why people want to have virtual try-on technology inside their e-commerce platforms, it's basically to increase conversions. That's the one thing that was our theory when we started Viking. We thought, okay, we saw exactly the same thing for virtual try-on for headwear. It must be the same for any type of product. So when we launched VTO for footwear, we told our first clients, okay, you integrate our tech and measure everything, A/B test, and if you see an increase in conversions, then we can talk about a yearly license. So we have the data now to back all these theories up. There is an increase in conversions. People are more likely to add it to their cart. And it's also a great way to attract new customers. When someone is using virtual try-on, they're most likely going to tell their friends. Of course, they're able to share the experience with their friends to help them make that purchase decision. And of course, when we talk about measuring the impact of virtual try-on, it comes with a platform. We track every virtual try-on activity on any platform, which allows our customers to measure the number of virtual try-ons, number of times people interacted with a 3D asset. But also, it's a great tool to scale virtual try-on across platforms. We developed an AI which converts any 3D model into a virtual try-on ready asset. So here you can see on the screen, you just drag and drop a 3D model, fill in all the product details. I think here it's an Under Armour 3D model, and with 2 clicks, it's ready for VTO. And from the same platform, you can visualize it and preview it in virtual try-on. And you can also scan the QR code to try the VTO yourself. The idea here is that you can do the same for bulk upload. So you can upload hundreds and thousands of 3D models, and in 2 clicks, you will have VTO ready assets for everything. We also embedded Viking Studio, which is a great platform if you want to edit the positioning or the lighting, if you want to upload custom lighting. This is also possible, and you can save it, and your developers will just have to download the VTO ready assets. That's it from our side. So now, as a transition, of course, I talked a lot about virtual try-on, but virtual try-on would be nothing without scaling 3D model production. This is why I led it to Franz to take over to talk about scaling 3D models.
Yeah, thanks, Thibault and Matthew. Super exciting session, and congrats on the entrepreneurial journey as true pioneers in the industry. And I think it's, especially with the mirrors, you're taking it to another level. We are a bit in the background, so to speak. Our company, as I said, is also computer vision, machine learning focused from the beginning. And basically, we deal with the aspect of 3D asset production at scale. So we built this machine that you kind of place an object inside, hit the button, and the high quality 3D asset comes out of it. We started out by looking a bit at the market, I think 2.5 years ago, where we said, okay, there's a lot of photogrammetry scanning solutions out there. You can do lots of stuff also with your phone. But is it really production of tens of thousands of assets at the highest quality? And it wasn't really. So we decided to build this machine that you can see here, and it comes in many iterations, right? There's machines for shoes, for bags, for other items. You place the item, and this is typically done at the studio level. So former 2D studios or existing 2D studios of large brands and retailers. In this case, in the case of Adidas, it's a company called Nurek based out of Germany. You place the item, press a button, and the high quality 3D asset comes out of it, right? So this is a process that takes about 10 to 12 minutes. The result is something like this. And I just want to show two qualities of a 3D asset that we think is super important, especially if you want to leverage it for many, many applications. One of them being, and the most important of them being right now, virtual try-on, right? So one quality is relightability, meaning we measure the reflection of the light from the object, which then allows the object to be relightable, as you can see demonstrated here, meaning you can put it in any kind of context and it will interact naturally with the environment and with the light. The second aspect is the geometry, right? So those of you who are, of course, the experts in the industry, they will be familiar with this kind of view. It's not the same shoe in silver or metallic colors, just the geometric view or the view of the geometry. Since we are measuring something called the photometric normals, we get incredible levels of detail down to the sub 0.02 millimeter level, which allows the customer, and let's say the customer in our case, B2B company, the brands, but then in return also the end customer, to look at the assets in completely photorealistic quality. I think this is the key term here. So from that high quality 3D asset, and this is, I think, what was truly astonishing for us, that we came into the market, of course, looking at virtual try-on as well as the major application as a driver for the industry. We quickly realized that the quality is high, you can actually derive much more content from it. So if you go on some of the Adidas products right now, the classic 2D photo, right, can be rendered and derived from it. A contextual photo, right, since we are having the objects that interact with the light or with the sunlight or with artificial light, you can actually put it in any kind of context. You can also put it in any kind of context with video. And at the same time, of course, the classic virtual try-on as well, augmented in an augmented reality way. And this is how we started. And we found out, however, that the pieces of the puzzle are very important. So in this case here, specifically for Adidas, is really the coming together of three technology companies and service providers. Two of them were introduced today. Nurek is the third one, and is actually the studio. And I think to involve them in production at scale is actually really, really important. So it can be external studios or internal studios. And this is some of the content that is being created. On the left side, on the mobile, it's the result of Viking's virtual try-on technology. On the right side, you can see then how all the imagery, all the videos, the contextual photos and videos are being derived from it. And this is possible because, you know, the end user asks himself, is this a real photo or not? Or let's say even our customers ask themselves. And when this question is asked, as here as well, which one is a classical photo, which is, you know, a virtual photo derived from the 3D, we knew that we were on the right path to kind of be a technology company can help revolutionize this, because it not only creates value, but it saves cost as well, as you do the asset once and you derive everything from it. And this for the first time allowed them to go from some hero products that were done to demonstrate the concept to actually all products, right? And so companies can now think to build a library of high quality 3D assets for everything that they do, and then in the future decide whether they want to do videos from it, they want to do just the photos from it, whether they want to do virtual try-on for it, or even, you know, make a campaign out of it. And it became economically viable, right, through the technological breakthroughs that we experienced over the past years, meaning there's more processing power to crunch the data on our end. So here we're working lots with NVIDIA, for instance, and leveraging their GPUs, where basically it allows us to take gigabytes of data and in a few hours compress it to a 3D asset that can actually be displayed on a phone, right? And on the development side, I mean, ImageNet, those of you who are in the computer vision machine learning field will know it, allows us to, of course, as an example here, take many open source available frameworks and algorithms to kind of quickly iterate and test. And so for the first time, photorealistic quality, actually, it's possible at scale and it's economically viable. I think Matthew showed it in a fantastic way how they pioneered virtual try-on, but way beyond that, we saw companies, retailers, brands, and so on flocking into adoption of 3D assets. And I think this will only be enhanced with the Vision Pro and so on that will be launched in the near future, and what Meta, for instance, already does right now. The question now is, in the first place, however, how do I get my 3D assets? Now, we looked at scanning, but scanning is not the only way that you can get them, right? So I heard in previous conversations, there's a lot of talk about CAD models as well. And of course, this is a legitimate way to get 3D assets that were already created anyway when you had to basically get the assets to design your shoes and to prepare your prototypes and samples for the final shoes, the physical shoes, right? Why not leverage them? And this is true. This is sort of the opposite way than 3D scanning, where you basically invest again in creating an asset that might already exist. And so a good way to get started within companies surely is to leverage something that has been created already. There's, however, a few downsides to that as well, right? The quality of the 3D sometimes is not photorealistic. It's still a lot of manual work involved to get it ready for customers, because you don't want the item to look plasticky. You don't want to look it like a comic. It should look real. It should look be relatable, meaning you can put it in any kind of context. And it can be used, yes, for virtual try-on, but at the same time, if you really want to give the best experience, perhaps you should resort to a 3D scanning process, right? And so if you think about 3D scanning, not only, specialized equipment what we build, yes, it allows you to do so at scale. The machines cost a lot of money. There is some time that you have to reserve for that as well. And there's other more easy ways to get into this with mobile phones or handheld devices. And I actually asked a colleague of us, Mark, to maybe just demonstrate a bit how this can be done via mobile phone. So thanks, Mark, for sending in the video, which I integrated here. Hopefully you can see it. Let me show.
All right, so we're gonna scan Teddy, not just because he's super cute, but also because he's got the right dimensions and level of detail for what we're trying to replicate. So here's how it works. So we just scan him on the phone. And that's about it. Oh, wow. The level of detail in this is impressive. You can kind of see all these fine elements of it, like each individual strand of its hair. And you can even see through the semi-transparent bow tie that he has on. It's pretty awesome.
Yes, I think Mark is absolutely right. It is pretty awesome. By the way, thanks again for putting together this video. It's a great way to get started, right? So we saw how mobile phones can serve to being scanning objects beyond shoes, right? In this case, it was a teddy bear. It applies also to toys, tools. Any kind of object can be digitized for any kind of product oriented company, not just in the fashion industry, but especially in the fashion industry. What, however, is very important is also if you look at the whole scanning process and how you can scale it and basically produce tens of thousands of items, right? It's not enough just to produce a few to make kind of a marketing splash. It's, I think, right now the time to scale this. And of course, you need to be able to handle whatever comes after the 3D asset generation, meaning the quality checks, the post-production that sometimes is needed, because still computer vision machine learning has its limits as well, right? And so we'll go a bit into that. What still is something that we are working on, where we see some limits in the technology. So transparency is notoriously, those who are in the industry, they know this is challenging. So you can see it here, not maybe at the first glance, but if you look at the final model, you can see that the stats have been reworked. Especially here, you can see it way better in the non-touched up version versus the one that has then been perfected for customers. And the same is true, especially on football shoes. This happens a lot. You can see it here, the pre and the post, and again here on the sole, the pre and the post. We still get lots of detail, but in order for the content to go out there, lots of post-production needs to happen in some cases. And here we're glad to be able to work with fantastic studios such as Nureg in Europe, who does this at scale as well. However, it's very rewarding, right? You can create all the 2Ds from it. You have the virtual try-on that you create from it, right? You have the videos you can create from it. You have an animated social media post you can create from it once you have that high quality model. And it's true that scale can be achieved. And I just want to share some numbers as well. So between 800, 1,250 scans can be done per month per machine. There is, however, also a learning curve. I think that's very important. It's not plug and play. The teams need to upskill, reskill. They need to get familiar. They need to train themselves on these new kind of workflows and devices before they can then integrate all these results in platforms like Viking's content management and AR platform that they have built, right? And especially, and I was discussing this just today actually with Matthew and Thibault, and maybe I want to open up the discussion as well with Ben. Looking into the future, right? What we see is that the native medium on, let's say, the mixed reality headsets or the spatial computing devices will be 3D. So shopping there will be the best experience will be natively in 3D. Now we don't know the future of these devices and how many of those get sold. We will all discover it. It is true, however, that on these kind of devices, 3D will be the key medium. And I wanted to show in our joint presentation what is already possible today for companies who approach 3D holistically. And I think this is the only way forward in terms of content generation. If then, and there was a lot of discussion before in the session with Mr. Katz about generative AI, right? Companies need to also start thinking, especially brands who produce high quality products, how to leverage this data for whatever is to come in the future, right? Because there is no generative AI or high quality generative AI in a B2B setting that can give you a value add unless there is a high quality data set to start with. And so if you want to have, for instance, in the future, assistance to the design aspect that we saw before. So when the creative process starts of designing, let's say, a new Samba shoe, you need to ask, where the data sets come from. And those data sets are being created right now as well, that in the future will be able to be trained by state-of-the-art of generative AI models to then inform and assist a creative process that can be exciting as well. So this is a bit more out there. I just wanted to highlight that the ground for this is already being laid right now as we speak. And this is something that brands, as well as startups like ours, should pay attention to, because it will play an important role in the future. And I think with this, I came to an end of our joint session. I hope it was insightful. And of course, together with Thibault and Matthew, we're super looking forward to any questions.
No, that's great. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, Franz, Thibault, and Matthew. We've got some audience questions. I had one of my own. We're not got a ton of time, so I'm going to try and fly through a couple of them. So from the audience's perspective, there's been a couple questions that maybe I can address, and just correct me if I'm wrong, right? So a couple of folks have asked about measuring stress and tension with virtual try-on, or asking about modifying materials and colors and things like that. Am I right in thinking that's more the preserve of 3D design and simulation, the CAD stuff that Franz was talking about, than it is the scanned assets?
So we don't focus on sizing. We really focus on visualization of the product. There are some sizing solutions on the market, which you have a company like Strutfit, which offers that type of service, where users have to print out a piece of paper to get the exact measurement of your foot. But for the virtual trial experience at the moment, we only focus on styling. The best way to measure stress and tension would be something that we thought of, but it's very difficult to do. It would be like a sock that you put on, which would measure exactly how you like to wear your shoe. But this is very difficult because sizing can be a very subjective thing.
Yeah, and maybe from my end, Ben, just to answer your second question, yeah, absolutely, you can modify the 3D asset that comes out of a scanner, just like you could modify a CAD model. There's no problem, and you might have, let's say, a more detailed starting point. And speaking of details about size and fit, that's actually very interesting. I've been discussing it with a lot of colleagues in the industry as well. We measure the outside, of course, down to a sub-millimeter level. So we're absolutely true to the size. However, then the difference is, of course, how the shoe fits in the inside. And here you would need to combine our solution with a CT solution, where you care about the inside. So sure, this is possible. The question is, where we put our focus as a company. But we have that type of competence in the background and are thinking of it. So it might be something that comes in the future.
Yeah, it makes a bunch of sense when you start to think about that interior volume side of stuff and it's CT scanning. One extra audience question. Somebody asked, is this only for footwear at the moment, or are you exploring apparel as well?
We are also moving into apparel. We've just launched our watch try-on solution. And of course, like the holy grail for these AR mirrors is not for us, not just to cover footwear, but also clothing. We are working on that at the moment, and we've got some like quite advanced versions of this now. So watch out for over the next 6 months. We expect to have our first in-store solution working.
Yeah, Perfect. And the final question is from me, and this is around there's a lot of kind of downstream use cases here. I can also see a lot of value for scans in the decision-making processes that happen in-house for brands. Have you been approached, or have you thought about how you might position some of the same experiences and the same capabilities and the same assets for brands in-house audiences for line review, visualization, those kinds of things?
Yeah, go on, Thibault.
Yeah, funny you mentioned that because we're just having a conversation about that. So to help design departments on how to create collections for more in the creation phase, where people could see a design which would only live digitally first, and then if everybody around the world can have access to it and give their opinion. And the same for apparel. And we're also launching a B2B offering for showcases for brands, where people will be able to go at a physical location of a particular brand and try on different looks and see if they want to select it for their store.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, maybe just to hop on this, Ben, if you just 1 minute. I'm new to the fashion industry. I have to admit it. E-commerce as well. We built a measurement device that then happened to fit very well with that industry. And of course, in trying to build my knowledge, I talked with a lot of decision makers of brands and retailers and so on. And they said, yeah, amazing what you can do for content creation, right, at scale. And this is what we focus on right now. But what if you could put these kind of in factories as well to help the sampling process, which notoriously is also a very not sustainable process in most cases. Many samples being sent around through the whole world. And surely there is a potential there. However, I think it's very important there to figure out a correct way of integration, right? In the sense you always need to integrate with already pre-existing processes that work and work nicely and have been working for many decades. And this is, I think, the bigger question, how you make that nice and smooth.
Okay, perfect.
Right.
Perfect. There's a bunch of questions we could ask, and we could go on longer. Unfortunately, we're going to hand over to our next session. So Thibault, Matthew, Franz, thank you very much for your time today. Anyone wants to put any questions to those guys, there's always the Slack community and other ways to get in touch.